Hollywood's golden age sold an illusion: towering men, larger-than-life heroes, an unbeatable screen presence. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful, intimidating, and iconic stars of classic Hollywood were secretly much shorter than you ever imagined? Audiences believed they were giants, studios wanted you to believe it, and cameras were trained to hide the truth. Forced perspective, hidden platforms, carefully chosen co-stars, and strict studio rules made sure one thing stayed invisible: their real height. In an era when masculinity was measured in inches, being short could destroy a career. That's why these actors' heights were guarded secrets, rarely discussed, and sometimes flat out lied about. Yet despite standing several inches shorter than their on-screen rivals, these men dominated Hollywood, intimidated taller actors, and commanded absolute authority every time they appeared on screen. Some played ruthless gangsters. Others became romantic leads adored by millions. A few were so convincing that fans still refuse to believe the truth today. But once you see the real numbers, and understand the tricks studios use to protect their image, you'll never watch their movies the same way again. From legendary tough guys to award-winning icons, this list reveals 10 golden age actors whose shocking height proves that presence, power, and stardom have nothing to do with size. And trust me, number 1 will completely change how you remember classic Hollywood. Number 1, James Cagney. James Cagney was never meant to be a Hollywood giant. During the Golden Age, studios were obsessed with tall, dominant leading men, and Cagney didn't fit the mold. At just 5 feet 5 inches, he was noticeably shorter than most male stars of his era. In a time when height defined masculinity on screen, this single detail could have destroyed his career before it started. But Hollywood made a mistake by underestimating him. Cagney didn't rely on size. He relied on intensity. The moment he appeared on screen, he commanded attention with explosive energy, sharp movements, and an aggression that felt dangerously real. Audiences didn't see a short man, they saw power. Directors quickly realized that Cagney's presence could overpower actors who were several inches taller than him. To maintain the illusion, studios carefully controlled how he was filmed. Camera angles were tilted upward. Sets were adjusted. Co-stars were positioned strategically. Promotional photos exaggerated his build, and studio biographies quietly added inches to his height. The truth was hidden in plain sight. His performances in gangster classics like The Public Enemy turned him into one of Hollywood's most feared screen tough guys. Ironically, many of the actors he intimidated on screen were physically larger in real life. Crew members later revealed that Cagney's speed and intensity often made other performers genuinely uncomfortable during scenes. Off-screen, the reality was completely different. Cagney was disciplined, intelligent, and even trained as a dancer, a fact studios avoided highlighting, afraid it would weaken his tough image. Yet that dancer's precision is exactly what gave his performances such deadly control. James Cagney proved something Hollywood didn't want to admit: authority has nothing to do with height. By the end of his career, no one cared how tall he was. They remembered the fear, the power, and the dominance he brought to the screen. Number 2, Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart is remembered as the ultimate tough guy, cynical, fearless, emotionally untouchable. From Casablanca to The Maltese Falcon, he defined what it meant to be a Hollywood leading man. But behind the trench coat and razor-sharp dialogue was a truth studios never wanted audiences to focus on. Bogart was not tall at all. At roughly 5 feet 8 inches, Bogart stood shorter than most of the men he shared the screen with. In the Golden Age, that placed him below the ideal image of masculine dominance. Leading men were expected to tower over others, especially in romantic roles. Bogart didn't, and early in his career, this nearly trapped him in supporting and villain roles. What changed everything wasn't his height, but his attitude. Bogart developed a screen persona built on emotional control, verbal authority, and psychological dominance. He didn't overpower people physically, he outthought them. His calm confidence made him feel larger than life, even when standing next to taller co-stars. Studios still took precautions. Bogart was often framed sitting down, leaning, or placed closer to the camera. His romantic partners were frequently shorter actresses, carefully chosen to protect the illusion. Shoes with thicker soles became standard. Publicity photos avoided full-body shots that revealed proportions too clearly. What makes this more surprising is that Bogart often played characters who commanded fear and respect in dangerous worlds: gangsters, detectives, war-hardened men. Audiences never questioned his authority, because his presence was rooted in voice, posture, and timing, not inches. Off-screen, Bogart was aware of Hollywood's obsession with height and image, but he refused to compensate with exaggeration. That restraint became his greatest weapon. His masculinity felt authentic, not manufactured, and that made him irresistible. Number 3. Edward G. Robinson. Edward G. Robinson was one of the most intimidating figures of Hollywood's golden age. His sharp voice, piercing stare, and ruthless screen presence made him the face of crime and power in classic cinema. Yet behind that commanding image was a reality that shocked even industry insiders. Robinson stood at only 5 feet 5 inches. In an era obsessed with tall, physically dominant men, Robinson's height was considered a serious liability. Studio executives initially doubted whether audiences would ever fear a man so short. But the moment Robinson appeared on screen, those doubts vanished. His authority didn't come from size, it came from control. Every word he spoke felt deliberate. Every movement felt calculated. Studios still worked hard to protect the illusion. Robinson was often filmed from low angles, framed tightly from the chest up, or placed closer to the camera than taller actors. Sets were adjusted subtly, and co-stars were positioned carefully during confrontational scenes. Publicity photos focused on his face, never his full body. His breakthrough role in Little Caesar transformed him into one of Hollywood's most iconic gangsters. Audiences didn't see a short man, they saw a kingpin capable of crushing anyone who crossed him. Ironically, many of the actors he dominated on screen were significantly taller in real life, yet completely overpowered by his performance. Off-screen, Robinson was nothing like the criminals he portrayed. He was cultured, multilingual, and deeply intellectual, traits studios avoided promoting, fearing it would weaken his menacing image. But that intelligence fueled his performances, giving his characters a psychological edge that made them unforgettable. Edward G. Robinson proved that fear isn't created by physical size. It's created by presence, precision, and confidence. His legacy stands as proof that true power in Hollywood was never about height, it was about command. Number 4. Alan Ladd. Alan Ladd was one of Hollywood's most magnetic leading men, yet his on-screen charm hid a surprising truth: he was only 5 feet 6 inches tall. In an era obsessed with tall, commanding men, Ladd's stature seemed like a career-ending disadvantage. Studios feared that audiences would dismiss him as too short for romance or heroism. But Ladd had something far more powerful than inches: presence. From his breakthrough role in This Gun for Hire to countless westerns and war films, Ladd proved that height does not define heroism. He radiated calm confidence, quiet intensity, and an understated charisma that drew viewers in instantly. When he walked into a scene, the room seemed to bend around him. Taller co-stars could not overshadow his authority. Hollywood went to great lengths to conceal his height. Clever camera angles, strategically positioned co-stars, and raised platforms made Ladd appear taller on screen. Posters, promotional photos, and studio biographies often exaggerated his height, making him seem every bit the tall, idealized leading man. Few audiences suspected the reality behind the illusion. What makes Ladd's story remarkable is how naturally he embodied heroism. Unlike other actors who relied on aggression or bravado, Ladd's charm was subtle, almost quiet, yet irresistible. His performances required precision and timing, and his ability to convey strength without dominating physically made him unique among Golden Age stars. Off-screen, Ladd was private, disciplined, and intensely focused on his craft. He rarely complained about the industry's obsession with size, instead letting his talent speak for itself. His success proved that Hollywood's rigid ideals could be challenged, quietly, elegantly, and effectively. Alan Ladd showed the world that true stardom doesn't come from height. It comes from confidence, control, and a presence so powerful that no camera trick could ever hide it. Number 5. Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy is often remembered as one of Hollywood's most gifted actors, intelligent, versatile, and magnetic. But behind his commanding screen presence was a fact few viewers realized: he stood just 5 feet 7 inches tall. In a studio system obsessed with towering leading men, this could have been a serious limitation. Yet Tracy transformed what could have been a weakness into a defining strength. Tracy's power on screen never came from height. It came from authenticity. Every gesture, glance, and line of dialogue carried weight. Whether portraying a troubled father, a cunning politician, or a heroic everyman, Tracy's presence filled the frame. Taller co-stars often seemed dwarfed not by inches, but by his intensity and confidence. He didn't need to loom over others. Audiences felt his authority immediately. Hollywood still employed subtle tricks to enhance his stature. Strategic camera angles, carefully chosen co-stars, and set adjustments created the illusion of greater height. Publicity images emphasized his face and posture, rather than full-body shots, ensuring viewers focused on his presence rather than his size. What makes Tracy's story remarkable is his natural, effortless style. Unlike actors who exaggerated aggression to appear larger, Tracy relied on emotional truth. His performances were believable, relatable, and mesmerizing. He proved that authority and magnetism come from craft, timing, and intelligence, not physical stature. Off-screen, Tracy was disciplined and private, avoiding Hollywood scandals while focusing on his art. His height was never a topic, because it simply didn't matter. His talent overshadowed any superficial concern. Spencer Tracy showed that real dominance on screen comes from skill, depth, and presence, not inches. Even at 5 feet 7 inches, he became one of the most iconic figures of the Golden Age, proving that height is irrelevant when talent speaks louder than the rest. Number 6. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra, the legendary voice of a generation, was admired for his charisma, charm, and magnetic stage presence. But few realized that this icon, whose aura seemed larger than life, was actually quite short, standing at just 5 feet 7 inches. In Hollywood's Golden Age, where male stars were expected to tower over others, Sinatra's height might have seemed like a disadvantage. Yet he turned it into one of his greatest assets. Sinatra's power came not from size, but from confidence and charisma. Whether crooning on stage, acting in front of a camera, or walking into a room, he commanded attention effortlessly. His tall, smooth gestures, carefully crafted posture, and hypnotic voice created an illusion far greater than his physical stature. Fans didn't see a short man, they saw an unstoppable star. Hollywood studios subtly assisted the illusion. Camera angles, co-star placement, and wardrobe choices often emphasized his vertical presence. Posters and promotional shots highlighted his jawline and figure, downplaying height. Even stage lighting worked in his favor, casting him in ways that enhanced his stature. Yet the secret remained: Sinatra's magnetism always came from personality, not inches. What's remarkable about Sinatra is how he dominated both music and film simultaneously. On screen, he became a romantic and dramatic lead in classics like From Here to Eternity. Off-screen, his reputation for confidence, style, and influence further amplified the perception of dominance, making his height almost irrelevant. Frank Sinatra proved a simple truth: presence outweighs inches. Talent, charm, and sheer magnetism allowed him to become a legend, showing the world that stature is irrelevant when your personality fills every space you enter. Number 7. Danny Kaye. Danny Kaye, the comedic genius of Hollywood's golden age, is remembered for his dazzling energy, rapid-fire wit, and unforgettable charm. Audiences laughed, marveled, and cheered at his performances, yet few knew a surprising fact: he was only 5 feet 6 inches tall. In an era where leading men were expected to tower over others, Kaye's height could have been a setback. Instead, it became a secret weapon in his rise to stardom. Kaye's brilliance lay in his versatility and timing. On screen, he moved with a precision and agility that made him appear larger than life. His expressive face, lightning-fast gestures, and flawless comic timing captivated viewers, creating the illusion of dominance. Taller co-stars often seemed overshadowed by the sheer force of his presence. Physical stature mattered far less than his magnetism and charisma. Hollywood studios were aware of his height and took subtle measures to maintain the illusion. Camera angles were adjusted, co-stars strategically positioned, and sets slightly modified to give Kaye a more commanding appearance. Posters and publicity photos highlighted his dynamic expressions and energy, rather than full-body proportions, making height irrelevant to his star image. What made Kaye exceptional was that he didn't rely on intimidation or physical power. Instead, he conquered audiences through talent, singing, dancing, acting, and comedy all in perfect harmony. Off-screen, he was intelligent, disciplined, and deeply respected by his peers, further enhancing the aura of a man whose influence exceeded his physical size. Danny Kaye's legacy proves that true presence is created through skill, creativity, and personality, not inches. Even at 5 feet 6 inches, he became one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, showing the world that talent can overshadow any perceived limitation. Number 8. Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci is known for his explosive energy, razor-sharp intensity, and unforgettable performances in Hollywood classics. From Raging Bull to Goodfellas, he captivated audiences with a presence that seemed larger than life. Yet behind the unforgettable characters was a little-known fact: Pesci stands only about 5 feet 4 inches tall. In a world that equated height with power, his stature might have been a barrier, but he turned it into a signature advantage. Pesci's power on screen has never come from size. Instead, it comes from fearlessness, timing, and sheer intensity. When he speaks or acts, every movement, glance, and word carries authority. Taller actors often appear intimidated next to him, not because of physical dominance, but because of his sheer personality and unpredictable energy. Audiences feel his presence immediately, often forgetting he is shorter than many around him. Hollywood and directors still use subtle tricks to enhance his screen image. Strategic camera angles, carefully arranged co-stars, and selective framing ensured that his performances commanded attention. Yet Pesci never relied on these alone. His skill and magnetic unpredictability made him unforgettable regardless of technique. What makes Pesci remarkable is the contrast between his stature and the larger-than-life characters he plays. From volatile gangsters to sharp-tongued sidekicks, he proves that intensity and charisma outweigh inches. Off-screen, Pesci is known to be calm and private, a stark contrast to his explosive on-screen persona, further proving that height is irrelevant when personality dominates. Joe Pesci shows the truth Hollywood often hides: size doesn't define power. Through talent, energy, and an unforgettable presence, he has carved a legendary place in cinema, proving that stature is only a number when skill and magnetism fill the screen. Number 9. Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre is one of the most haunting and memorable figures of Golden Age Hollywood. With his piercing eyes, distinctive voice, and eerie presence, he became synonymous with villains, masterminds, and enigmatic characters. Yet behind that unforgettable screen persona was a surprising fact. He stood only about 5 feet 6 inches tall. In an industry obsessed with tall leading men, his stature could have limited his career, but it became a key part of his mystique. Lorre's power on screen was never physical, it was psychological. He had an uncanny ability to captivate audiences with a single glance, subtle gesture, or whispered line. Taller co-stars often seemed overshadowed by his intensity. Hollywood audiences were drawn to him, not for height, but for the sense of tension and intrigue he radiated. Studios and directors subtly enhanced his screen presence. Camera angles, set designs, and co-star positioning emphasized his impact rather than his size. Posters and promotional photos highlighted his expressive face, while framing techniques ensured he dominated the scene. Despite these tricks, Lorre's true magic came from his talent, not the studio's illusions. What makes Lorre extraordinary is the contrast between his stature and the larger-than-life characters he played. Villains, schemers, and unforgettable supporting roles all felt menacing, powerful, or eerie, and audiences never questioned his authority. Off-screen, Lorre was intelligent, thoughtful, and deeply aware of the power of subtlety, a stark contrast to the extreme personas he portrayed. Peter Lorre's career proves that dominance and presence do not depend on height. Through skill, intensity, and magnetism, he left an indelible mark on Hollywood, showing that even at 5 feet 6 inches, an actor can loom larger than life on screen. Number 10. Lionel Barrymore. Lionel Barrymore was a pillar of Hollywood's golden age, known for his commanding presence, gravitas, and unforgettable performances in films like It's a Wonderful Life. Yet despite his on-screen dominance, few realized that Barrymore was only about 5 feet 7 inches tall. In an era that equated height with authority, this could have been a major limitation, but Barrymore turned it into an advantage, proving that talent and charisma outweigh physical stature. Barrymore's authority came from his voice, timing, and commanding personality. Whether portraying powerful patriarchs, cunning figures, or morally complex characters, his mere presence filled the frame. Taller co-stars often seemed secondary next to him, not because of inches, but because of the confidence, poise, and gravitas he projected effortlessly. Audiences immediately recognized his dominance, never questioning his height. Hollywood employed subtle techniques to reinforce his stature. Strategic camera angles, careful co-star placement, and stage adjustments ensured he appeared imposing. Posters and publicity emphasized his face and posture, keeping viewers focused on his authority rather than his measurements. Yet even without these tricks, Barrymore's skill alone made him unforgettable. What makes Barrymore remarkable is his ability to blend elegance with power. Off-screen, he was cultured, articulate, and highly respected by peers, qualities that translated into on-screen credibility. His performances were nuanced, memorable, and commanding, demonstrating that presence comes from talent, not inches. Lionel Barrymore's legacy proves a simple truth about Hollywood: true power is conveyed through skill, timing, and confidence. At 5 feet 7 inches, he dominated the screen, outshining taller actors and leaving an indelible mark as one of Golden Age cinema's most influential figures.